Now, honestly, I don't know if the Undead Unwanted Adventurer has any right to be as good as it actually was, but I'm very thankful that it turned out to be a pleasant surprise of this new anime season. So, the idea of like undead MCs, sure, we see that before, but the idea of a reverse evolution is quite interesting. And what I mean is, like, normally when you see evolutions for characters, like they become stronger and maybe different forms, they typically start off at a decent point, right? Maybe it's a humanoid form into godlike status. But this man ends up discovering a dragon of some sort, which honestly, I'm looking at this beast saying that's a dragon. That thing looks like a god of some sort. But I mean, I appreciate when an anime literally says what I'm thinking out loud and it's saying, like, hey, I guess dragons just kind of have all sorts of forms, so we never know what we're gonna bump into. And I'm like, you know what? Respect. This thing swallows him, kills him, burns him alive, does something because he wakes up as a skeleton. And what we see by the end of the first episode is him evolve because as he kills more and more monsters, he actually kind of like absorbs their essence and he becomes a ghoul. And whether or not he becomes a vampire, which is one of the paths that he talked about, it's interesting because I really thought they were going to keep him as a skeleton because I really didn't know a lot about this. The only thing I knew a lot about was that some people said, hey, I might give this a shot because it kind of reminds me of Skeleton Knight in Another World. I was like, hey, I like that show. I should give this one a watch. And it wasn't as goofy or silly as I thought they were going to make it. It kind of has like this element of seriousness, but it also doesn't take itself so seriously to the point that it doesn't have a couple of laughs or a couple of like, oh wait, this is a little unfortunate, haha kind of vibes to it. And I kind of dig the idea that this man obviously has the fear of he can't just barge into town because, well, looking like that, he'll get killed. But a ghoul form, a little easier to cover up and blend because if you're a skeleton and you're all bone, one wrong tap and people are going to realize you're a monster. A ghoul, on the other hand, has flesh, so he can cover that up a bit better. But the speaking is going to be a bit of an issue. Either way, I think this is worth a watch. I think this is going to be a pleasant surprise of the season. I don't know if it will be an amazing masterpiece of a show, but in terms of being an enjoyable watch, definitely has my seal of approval. Now, I do have a full live reaction episode 1 of this wonderful new show available on my Patreon, so if you would like to see my full and good thoughts, they're over there if you're interested. So, I think the thing that immediately stood out to me was the overall look of the show. Whether it's the MC's character design, I mean, I really, like I said, I knew very little about this show. I thought we were just gonna end up with the classic Kirito character design and, you know, we'd move on. No, the dude looks actually unique. He actually looks like an adventurer. Turns out, well, he's not really suited to be one, which sure, we've seen that type of character before. Someone who really wants to be a hero, wants to go on those big adventures, but his job is probably better working the fields because while he's able to use a few different types of like magics or spells, he's not really good at using any of those, so someone who's mastered one of them is going to be more powerful. So he's been doing this stuff for many of years, and he really isn't as capable as probably most people who after a year or two of adventuring will end up being. But he has the heart, he has the drive to be better, and he's a character that you can say, you know what, I would want to follow someone like that because he doesn't seem like he's cringy or edgy. He seems like he just has his heart in the right place. He wants to do the right thing. He wants to go do those big adventures. Unfortunately, he's just built to not be able to do it as well as most people. Dude accidentally stumbles in to fight a dragon, and it doesn't even look like he put up a fight, which I can't say I blame him. I mean, you might want to make the argument, well, he should have at least tried to do something. It looks to me that that thing just immediately bit him and killed him. Like, he just wandered in, said, oh boy, and before he could think or do anything, that thing grabbed him and killed him. And I have to say, I appreciate that because that thing didn't look like it could be soloed by one single person. And when you see him wake up as a skeleton, it was really fun because immediately the 3D was good. Like, there's a lot of 3D when it comes to the skeleton animation, and that blended in seamlessly. It almost had like this filter on it that allowed it to blend into a darker cave environment, so it just looked like it almost had a interesting style to it with 3D movements. So there's a lot of like, okay, it actually looked like his arms are moving a lot more, it wasn't stiff. And seriously, I expected him to be a skeleton for at least a couple more episodes. I thought, you know, once he absorbed the first skeleton that he defeated and nothing happened, I was like, oh, you know, it'll probably take a little bit for him to evolve. And after a couple of nights of basically not eating, not sleeping, and just killing around, he becomes stronger and stronger. So while it seems like in his original life he was limited by what his body could and could not do, now because he is this undead with seemingly his soul still attached, we don't know exactly what happened to him. Did he die and his soul just stuck with it? Is this just a physical ailment? We really don't know. Is it a curse, right? The only thing we know 100% is that now in this form of the kind of evolution that he's doing, he's actually becoming stronger and stronger. The first time he kills a slime, which there's these little cores that kind of spin around in the slime's stomach or its goo, whatever you want to call it. He says he got lucky, but by the end, he knew exactly where that was and he was fast enough to do it. We go from the start of him being a skeleton with no muscle or mass, barely able to swing a sword because he's a skeleton, to him being faster and stronger than he probably ever was in his human form before all this happened. You just see a lot of interesting ideas at play, and the overall look of the world is really cool, whether it was the glimpse into the market or the guild, or even just when he was initially entering into the labyrinth or the maze, whatever you want to call this place. The look of this just felt like, okay, when I play video games like RPGs, especially like fantasy RPGs, like, I just feel like this is the type of world that I feel like a game developer put a lot of thought into. So seeing an anime just with so much care put into every nook and cranny makes me really excited to explore this world alongside our character Rent. There was a girl he was apparently supposed to help, who ultimately he never did because, well, he was stuck and obviously there's some worry about if he's alive or not from the people who know him. Most likely she's going to bump into him because it seems like she went into the same location as him, so it'll be interesting to see if they go more comedic or she immediately starts to try to kill him. It'll be interesting to see what they do. But honestly, I leave this episode thinking it's pretty damn good. I like the fact that it's not overly serious or overly comedic. It has that nice little middle ground. Like, you know, think of like Goldilocks and the Three Bears. You know, one bed's a little too hard, one bed's a little too soft, but one bed's just right. And that's kind of how I feel. Not too funny, not too serious, just right. And I like it. I like these types of fantasy shows, and I like the fact that the main character seems like someone I can actually want to root for right away. And it'll be interesting to see how he goes about things, because I mean, whether or not he actually becomes a vampire, if that's his next evolution, or if it's going to be more of the ghoul stuff becomes more and more human-like, I don't know. Either way though, this was a good first episode. It definitely has my seal of approval. I think overall, the opening and ending were both good. The music from what we saw, or heard, I should say. I mean, the intro kind of twanginess, it kind of felt like a bard was playing our tune. Really good stuff. I found this one to be a pleasant surprise. I walked in with an open mind and I left saying, give me next Friday. Let me know what you thought of the first episode though down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new around here, of course ring that bell, and like I mentioned, we have a full live reaction over on my Patreon, and hey, while you're over there, you also get a video shout out. So today we have Bob Johnson, Uhari Kazuri, Kevin Lamb, Hazim Safel, and June Liu. So I appreciate the support, everyone. Please take care. Have a good one.